Yeah. 3.
I definitely put that up.
Yeah.
We know.
3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Wrap. It's going to be hot, it's going to be steamy, both in the room and in the conversation. For those who don't know, what we like to do here on The Wrap is we like to give our views on some certain issues. We like to think we have a fair and balanced view on certain issues. Facts and logic, that's what we like. A little bit of emotion as well, but you know, we're going with it. Alex, how are you today, mate?
I'm going great guns, mate. Coming off Para's first round in a very long time last week. Para's playing great guns. Got a game today, so I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Good mood in general. I think a lot to cover today, but I'm excited.
Yeah, that's very nice. Dougal, how are you, mate?
I'm pretty sick and a little bit ill.
I've made that joke before on the podcast.
So I'm going to do my best, but
we may not be getting the best Dougal.
You might be getting about 85%.
Look,
we might be getting like a 13, 14 Dougal. NBA Classic teams.
Okay.
Not a great start there, but moving swiftly on. Jumping to conclusions. For those who don't know what that is, we make a bit of an outlandish statement that we try to justify at the end of the show. We pick the one that we think is the most interesting. So, Alex, you've said you've got quite a controversial one that might take us off the air.
Yep. Yep. All right. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to do it. Girls don't have friends that are girls.
Sounds a bit silly.
No, I think there's definite logic in that.
Definitely. Yeah, girls don't have friends who are girls. Definitely not best friends.
So a wise man once told me one of the most evil things in the world is a conglomeration of teenage girls.
I've heard that.
Did he say conglomeration?
No, I'm paraphrasing from...
You're paraphrasing the word conglomeration. Good to hear, Andos.
Bit of thesaurus.com.
Yeah, whatever.
Dukes, what's yours? I bet this is going to be hot trash.
I think it's quite a good conclusion, but it is a bit touch and go. I don't know how to be received. Which is that taking a leak outside the bathroom is always way more satisfying than taking a leak inside the bathroom.
I saw a meme on Facebook this week where it was like one of those yes or no things, and it was taking a piss in your backyard when you have a fully functioning toilet. I got a love heart react from me. Beautiful meme. So I think there's some serious potential in that.
Well, that's a nice little endorsement for Andos. He doesn't give those out willy-nilly.
I don't.
All right, what's yours, big man?
Well, mine, last week I had a fashion-related one about Ugg boots.
I've had a fashion-related one several times, I think.
Since I'm quite the fashionista myself, I think that...
Tell that by your footy shorts.
Look, mate, it's practicality.
Well, Zac Efron coif you got going on as well.
Thank you. I'm actually shaving my head next week, so if you want to see shaved head Dossie, give us a
like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. But mine is that you are a battler if you wear flat caps.
What about this one?
That's exactly where I got my inspiration from.
What if I put it backwards?
That's disgusting. I was not sure whether I was going to attack flat caps themselves or the people that wear flat caps, but I've gone for the people. You're a battler if you wear flat caps.
I agree. I concur. There was a period where flat caps were cool.
Yeah.
And like the NBA ones particularly.
Yeah.
Like New York Knicks ones and Celtics ones.
Yeah. One of my coaches, Julian Kazoo, wears flat caps all the time.
Well, that's all you need to know.
Mm-hmm. Good man, but
7-footer with a handle. All right. Andos, what is on the agenda for today?
Well, we need to pick what conclusion we're picking.
How about Andy's conclusion this afternoon that Kamaru Usman was behind John Jones, the best pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC?
I admitted I was wrong. It was a spur of the moment out there comment, and I was wrong.
I would also like to nominate Andy's other conclusion of the afternoon, which was that you can't be the best player on your team if you're a centre and if you can't handle the ball.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous.
The only exception to that is Vucevic because he's on like the 4th worst team in the NBA and they've got hot trash other than him.
Andy likes exceptions to the rule.
He loves the rules that have exceptions.
Are we done on this?
So which one are we going with?
I think
Probably not Andy's.
I think that. What was yours again, Dougal? I've forgotten.
I've also forgotten.
Okay, well,
I did give it an endorsement, but I
you did give it an
what it was.
endorsement, and I think because it's 1 endorsement to 0, we can probably explore that later on.
I did. No, I really did like Alex's.
Oh,
I genuinely want to be reminded of yours.
Mine is that taking a leak outside the bathroom is way more satisfying.
See, that's a non-starter. Like,
especially as well because it marginalises most of the female audience on CHP. That I think it's definitely more.
It marginalises the female audience more than saying females don't have real friends.
No, as in they can't be. They're not really as part of the conversation. They're not really as part of the conversation.
Okay, all right. Alex can do his. I think his is a bit silly, but we can explore it anyway.
Of course, we'll do some exploration things.
Right,
okay.
so what else
what do we got on today?
On the agenda today, we've got our domestic story on the New South Wales election. It appears that Gladys has secured...
you're doing the story, eh?
No, I'm giving a slight synthesis, mate.
Dude, it is warm in here. You're going to have to stop being snippy.
It does. You do have a tendency... over the past couple of weeks, you have been quite snippy. I think you just need to calm it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Gladys has won. So that's what we'll be covering, as well as the Mueller investigation.
My favourite story of the last 2 years.
Dr.
Besides
Zan.
the Justice
Smollett. Dr. Zan will be giving a little bit of ooh-ah on the Mueller investigation. And as well, we've got some beta males.
A splattering of beta males.
Splattering.
I've got 2 nominations. One from is a professor at my university.
Wow. So if you want to hear about Dougal's rant about his professor at university, stick around.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Don't forget to share. Every interaction really helps us. So I think we cut the BS, get down to business. Doogie C, I think you're up on the New South Wales election.
Okay, boys and girls. As of about an hour ago, when I was doing the research, the coalition have looks like they will form a government, and will probably form a majority government. They currently had, as of an hour ago, had 46 seats, 34 for Liberals, 12 for the Nats. And they need 47 to form a majority, but there were several independents who were willing to work with the Liberal government anyway, so it looks like they will form a government regardless. It looks like Labor has lost and Michael Daly, however, is seeking to remain leader of the opposition Labor Party in New South Wales. The Liberals only lost the seat of Coogee, however the Nationals have lost the seat of Lismore to Labor, then lost Barwon and Murray to the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers, while they're also under pressure in Dubbo. Other notable occurrences was Mark Latham won a seat in the Senate. And I think that kind of gives you all you need to know. I think some people think it's important to say that Gladys is the first woman elected Premier by New South Wales people. Maybe, I don't know if that's an important point. I just feel like she was probably the better person for the job, so she got elected. I don't really care if she's a woman. I just say good job, Gladys. What do you think, Alex?
It is what it is. It's very apparent that the kind of emotional swell, the undercurrent, particularly propagated by the younger generation, obviously just didn't stick with the older generation. I think you obviously have some kind of they're parallel tracks, but one is a kind of Labor Greens and the other one's Liberal. Obviously, it just appears that the Liberal demographic, the older demographic, was just more prevalent, because it was a pretty serious campaign that the Greens, Labor, even like Keeps It the Open run as well. They picked up a reasonable percentage for a party of their size as well. It obviously looks as if the state elections no one really pays that close attention to, if we're honest. And it's often kind of a symptom of what is happening at a federal level. But I don't have any. I'm not exuberant about Gladys's win. I'm not depressed or shocked or whatever. It is what it is. We'll just have to see how it goes. I don't like the whole the first female premier, like the big exaltation because she's a woman. We should be trying to normalise female achievement, and instead of just like pedestaling every single woman that does something great as if it's kind of some kind of exception to the rule where there's some kind of outlier. We should be saying females are great, they can do the job. They did the job. It's not they did the job because they're a woman type of thing. That's what I would say.
Don't mind a bit of Keep Sydney Open, actually. Andos, what do you think?
I think Daly made it pretty tough on himself. I think he had he would have had a good chance of winning, and a couple of fatal errors, including
The Chinese
comment,
issue.
which our good friend Jeff Lee jumped on as the Minister of Multiculturalism or something like that. And he's our representative in Parramatta. He had a bit to say about that. So I think that Daly made it very tough on himself. I don't think really much of what happened really just happened really.
It did, yeah.
It's hard hitting analysis.
It's not going to have.
But if we're going to say, well,
I think Gladys managed the economy well, allegedly.
Good infrastructure, I think.
Maybe. We'll see. These things often get substantially more expensive as it goes on. Yeah. But I think the lesson would be, if we were going to say, well, what is the lesson out of this election, particularly for an opposition, and more particularly for the left coming out of this. The problem when you play identity politics is that if you forget where you're up to, and if you forget what you've said previously, you're going to struggle, and you get caught out quite easily. Because when you try and separate people into classes and races and make particular comments about races in general, in the sense that you ignore individuality, this is the kind of stuff that you get caught up in. And it's very difficult to come back from, particularly when one of your platforms is social justice, equitable treatment under the law, anti-discrimination, fairness, we're going to stop racism, all that stuff. It's very difficult to do that when you run a platform of identity politics. That's what I would say the lesson would be, probably.
Okay, good. Well, we're going to try and keep this podcast relatively short because this room is cooking. And we tend to go over quite a lot of time. So I'm saying we should probably move to the Mueller investigation.
Yeah, just right into it, I reckon. Get your hands dirty.
Sure. So, we've already covered kind of the Mueller investigation to a degree, in the sense that we already discussed the findings of the Senate Intelligence Committee, where the Senate Intelligence Committee passed down the judgment that said that they could not find any direct evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. We also mentioned the fact that the Mueller investigation, which has been running since 2016, has been running since 2016, has handed out a bunch of indictments, but they weren't related directly to collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Now, Friday, 5 o'clock American time, Mueller gives his report to Attorney General William Barr. A reporter from the New York Times says that it looks like there is going to be no further indictments related to collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians arising from the report. So this is what you call a nothing burger with cheese. This is one of the biggest witch hunts that we have ever seen in political history. There was no findings.
And it's one of the ones where I think everyone kind of knew at the start that it was a witch hunt, but it was more of like the allegation itself will do damage.
Yeah. And so it's been quite remarkable as well, because I would say the vast majority of people would crumble under the immense scrutiny that both Donald and his whole family was placed under, particularly Donald Jr. And Jared. The smearing, the unjustified allegations, the continued innuendo,
and the continued front page breaking stories, which were then retracted on page 6 about a week later.
Yeah. It's if you ever wanted to see the way in which the deep state tries to isolate, alienate, and annihilate an individual, this is kind of the way that they do it. They slam them with false accusations to the extent where it just feels like it doesn't even matter if they're true or not. Your reputation has been damaged to the extent that it's just not worth going on anymore. But to the Donster's credit, he is the Hulk. He is like that ship in the movie where the deeper they go, the pressure just solidifies him further. His hull gets stronger and stronger and stronger underneath the pressure. And in fairness, it seems as if this is almost going to turn out to be a victory for Trump in the sense that he's been able to identify and have people on the record who were supposed to be unbiased, were supposed to be non-partisan, but have been on the record as slamming Trump and portraying him as some kind of Russia puppet. And they've all been outed now. We know who all those guys are now. So they've destroyed their credibility. I think Trump's going to come out. Trump played golf on Saturday with Kid Rock. That's how relaxed he was about the findings of the Mueller investigation. He went to Mar-a-Lago and played golf. So, and you should remember as well that if you're dumping news at 5 o'clock on Friday, that's garbage time. That's garbage time minutes. That's Nick Collison time at the OKC Thunder. That's when you send the scrubs in.
Don't disrespect the GOAT like that.
So it's an absolute nothing burger. I think it's a major victory for Trump. It's for all the people who are skeptical about the extent to which he was a Russian puppet and the Russian influence in the election. This is a major victory. And the haters have been exposed, and I want to see them brought to justice.
What are your thoughts, Dougal?
Oh, well, I mean, I've been pretty consistent. I was open. I mean, I doubted they'd find something. If they did find something, I'd have a look at it. But every time they said they found something, it just was total nothing burger. And it was like some guy just wanting to get some airtime on the New York Times or on the Washington Post or something. And it turned out to be false. Like, there was multiple breaking news things like, this is the thing that's going to bury Trump. And the
walls are closing in.
It was just terrible. I don't think anybody's surprised, and I think it kind of vindicates Trump. It definitely helps him and contributes authenticity to his fake news media narrative.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, could be a big win for Trump, because I think the conclusion that the real hard people who really hate Trump are coming to is that Putin got to Mueller, or the Russians got to Mueller, and it's like they're going to have to, it's stretching.
They're going to have to do some serious logical acrobatics.
Yeah, they're going to have to do some serious acrobatics.
Some serious tortured logic. So I'll just go through a couple of reactions to it. So prior, we had, on Thursday, we had Democratic presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke, whose real name is Roberts. He's actually Irish. He also was involved in a hit and run and driving under the influence in between 1990 to 1993. Democrats have hidden that because he's the new star child of the Democratic Party. He said on Thursday, there is beyond a shadow of a doubt that Trump colluded with the Russians. So obviously on Friday he had to have a little bit of humble pie.
Beto O'Rourke.
Bill Maher, right? This is Hollywood, okay? Did the Democrats put too much trust in the Mueller report? Because I don't need the Mueller report to know he's a traitor. I have a TV. Well, Bill Maher, that almost deserves a nomination for that ridiculous statement.
Get a nomination, that's a total beta statement.
He also said that he hopes the economy goes into a recession. So that it looks like Trump's mismanaging the economy. That's what he said as well. And obviously, that's all well and good when you're worth $100 million, like Bill Maher is. But if you're living check to check, recessions kill people. So thanks, Bill Maher. Quote, Chelsea Handler, another Chelsea Handler.
Lately, what's she been up to lately?
She's a complete. Adding any word there, she's scum. Yeah.
Chelsea Handler said, quote, if I'm being completely honest, I'm very sexually attracted to Robert Mueller. I know it's not meant to be, but that doesn't mean I won't hang a poster of him above my bed. So you can just see where these people, like what kind of bubble these people are living in inside Los Angeles. It's just bizarre. Now, Rachel Maddow. There is a video going around of Rachel Maddow crying when she was delivering the findings, or getting very, very teary when she was suggesting, when she found out that there was...
She definitely did cry when Trump got elected, right?
Yeah, she did. She did. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you're supposed to be a
news anchor.
non-partisan news anchor when you cry when someone gets elected.
Yeah.
It's pretty difficult. Quote, in terms of what the Mueller investigation's conclusion means and what it found, we know only the smallest little bits. This is the start of something, apparently, not the end of something. Well, I'll tell you, Rachel Maddow, I will save you the waiting. I will take the years off this suspension of findings. You won't find anything. Hasn't found anything. The Trumpster is clean. You are part of the deep state just as much as anyone else. You are a puppet for the DNC and social justice warriors everywhere. I want to nominate you for a beta male nomination because of your continued fabrication of the events surrounding the election and also your continued smearing of Trump and his family. Rachel Maddow, you can go suck eggs, as far as I'm concerned.
Donald's too slick.
Too quick, stick and move.
He's a big 70-year-old man. Got some serious mass to him, and he still runs circles around these scrubs.
The thing is now, Trump will do something and I'll question it, and I'll think, but if I'm honest, who's more likely to know the game plan, me or Trump? I am just at the opinion now where I just assume Trump is 5 steps ahead.
Could be.
It's just like when Bill Shorten was asked, what do you think of Julia Gillard's statements on this and this? And he goes, look, I haven't heard them, but I'm sure I fully support them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's absolute.
There's a
Bill Shorten Cameron.
There's a video of Bill Shorten going around after the Christchurch things, where he did his spiel. It was like, this is a disgrace, we need to unify, whatever. And at the end of the video, he goes, was that alright? Did I do okay?
Yeah.
And the camera. Yeah,
Okay, well that's a good segue. Are you finished with Russia?
I'm happy with Russia. I'm happy to bury this story as well, but it's just this,
Mm-hmm.
That's one for the good guys, I would say.
One for the good guys. One step away from the brink of destruction for this beautiful world we live on. Now into...
What the hell was that? What was that? The absolute F was that?
Well, it said Jordan Peterson said every lie you tell or every pathological act you do brings the world one step closer to destruction, and every good thing you do brings the world one step further away from the brink.
Well, he makes a good point, and it's almost like a confronting point. He says, well, the logical thing would be you have to decide whether nothing you do matters or everything you do matters. And it matters so much that it's almost like the fate of the universe depends on every single action you take.
Yeah, so Andy, how about Andy and Alex just to quickly apologise for that one, and we'll be right on to
When
beta mail.
when
You
apologise.
pulled it out of nowhere.
Okay.
And also when you apologise for locking me out of the house last night, then you can
you deserved
get
it.
an apology. Okay.
Beta mails of the week. Now this is an interesting one, and I don't know if this will be well received. I don't even know if this will get any attention, or no one will listen, or maybe some people will listen, and maybe the beta mail who gets nominated will listen too. This man, his name is Nick Reimer. My apologies if that's not actually how to say your name. Reimer.
Weimer.
He's a senior lecturer in English and linguistics at the University of Sydney. Loves a bit of linguistics. The literary critics from who's that guy? Anyway,
Noam Chomsky.
No, not Chomsky. Different guy. Anyway, I'll think of his name later. Anyway, he wrote both of these articles in the wake of Christchurch, and while we are very happy to condemn what Fraser Anning said, I think some of the articles coming from the left are equally deserving of condemnation. Okay. This one was in the wake of Christchurch. He said his argument is that we have to leave the Ramsey Centre because it's promotes white supremacy, and the quote from the article is there's several. He said, many academics have accused Ramsey of being the intellectual face of a Western supremacist politics and therefore fundamentally incompatible with universities' obligation to support multiculturalism.
Should I just explain what the Ramsey Centre is quickly?
Yeah, so the Ramsey Centre I think it was established in 2017. It provides scholarships and a few different things, and also tried to set up like a bachelor's degree at several different universities, like a bachelor's degree in Western civilization. And so that's been condemned by several, academics of, one persuasion. And this is like a tactic of some reporters and some news outlets. Jordan Peterson gets the same treatment where they say academics have accused Jordan Peterson of being a white supremacist, or the alleged white supremacist Jordan Peterson. Like, the dude's the furthest thing away from a white supremacist, and the Ramsey Institute, as far as I can tell, is as well. They're not saying we need to, have like a replacement theory, or we need to keep Australia's demographic, white.
But Milo gets the same treatment.
Milo gets the same treatment.
He gets labelled alt-right all the time, and Milo says...
just because he's gay and he's
Milo
got a black
says,
husband.
Milo goes, the alt-right hate me.
Yeah.
They hate me.
The alt-right do hate him. The second thing he said was, if Australian universities really want to combat Islamophobia after Christchurch, only one course is possible: abandon Ramsey immediately. And I mean, do you remember that guy who shot Scalia at the baseball practice a couple of years ago?
Yeah, so American, I think he's Senator,
American Senator.
Anthony Scalia.
Yeah, Scalia, just an average Republican senator, got shot at. Like, the whole Republican team, baseball team that was practicing for a Senate baseball game, I think.
Yeah, so
got copped a drive-by from a full Bernie supporter, and then at the end of the day, it wasn't. No one on the right was like, this is Bernie Sanders' fault. They were like, this dude's obviously got some problems, and we can have a disagreement on politics. It doesn't mean that the people themselves are responsible for the actions of people who support them. And it's just ridiculous. In the same way, you could totally use the same logic to say we have to get any acceptance of Islam out of Sydney University because of terrorism, right? That would be the same logic as that. They would say we have to, because of the actions of some terrorists, then we have to totally eliminate anything sympathetic to Islam. It's like, that's the same logic.
Yeah. So I think we should just clarify as well what the role of the Ramsey Centre is. The Ramsey Centre was established in, as you said, in 2017 through an extraordinary endowment by the late Mr. Paul Ramsey. Now, so the purpose of the Ramsey Centre is to advance education by promoting studies and discussion associated with the establishment and development of Western civilization, including through establishing scholarship funds and educational courses in partnership with universities. Now, what has happened, obviously, is for whatever reason, there has been, people have equated Western civilization with white people. And that's just not the case.
And the funniest thing is like, probably the book that's at the most centre of Western civilization, the Bible, was written by a bunch of Arabs in the Middle East. It wasn't written by white people, it was written by brown people.
And even if you go back to the Greeks, the Greeks aren't white, last time I checked. You go through Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they're not white. Those guys are Greeks, Mediterranean. So what Western civilization is as much a culmination of ideas as it is a geographical area defined by particular people. There are Chinese people in Australia who are more sympathetic to Western civilization than white people.
And I mean, the other thing is, it's like, you try to throw out the term white supremacy as if, like, people are just are being Nazis over here. You know who Hitler wasn't a white supremacist, he was an Aryan supremacist, right? He hated the Slavs, he hated the Russians. And we love Russian books as well. We love Dostoevsky. We also personally quite like Ayn Rand, who, guess what, is a woman immigrant philosopher. And so then to throw white supremacy in, like, it's the whole concept of it is wrong on every level.
I just might quickly say, Thomas Sowell has a good point on why intellectuals, intellectuals, particularly university professors, have this thing where they're an expert in a very, very small field, but they often find themselves feeling like because they are an expert and they are an academic, that they have the obligation to comment on social and cultural issues, right? Because they are of the higher IQ class, higher IQ order. But he says they have an expertise in a very, very small field. One step outside of that field and they are up the creek without a paddle. Except they just don't recognise it because they feel like they have an obligation to. So Bobby Fischer, who was a chess champion, even though he has an extraordinarily high IQ and is an unbelievable chess player, if he was trying to advocate for a cause related to the Vietnam War, for example, or the World Wars, he may not have any idea. Just because you have an extraordinary amount of knowledge in one particular area does not then mean that you become an expert or are able to accurately and adequately diagnose an issue elsewhere.
Yes. Okay, good. Now, the second article I wanted to consider was a Slate news article written by Rachel Withers, who's a New York-based writer and producer, but is an Australian citizen. Her article title is Christchurch. I'll get the title in a sec. The URL didn't quite have the title in it, but one of the quotes from the article is that it is not unreasonable to place some measure of blame on those who have stoked the international spread of white supremacist ideology. The second quote is that we must condemn hate speech, not just when someone like Anning goes too far. We must deny visas to alt-right figures who come to our shores expecting a friendly welcome, not just in the wake of right-wing terrorist attacks, but always. We must fight the normalisation of Islamophobia, and above all, this is the killer, above all, we must accept responsibility for the hatred we have normalised. Okay, and the title of this article was The Christchurch Shootings Should Implicate All White Australians. Shame and apologies not enough in confronting our country's virulent racism. And it's like, these are exactly the same news outlets which will tell you the total opposite when it comes to Islamic terror attacks. The only difference is that I would consider is that you don't get to choose if you're white. You don't get to choose if you're white. You do really get to choose your religion. So in terms of culpability, I don't think the whiteness is there. And I don't think like normal Muslims are responsible for Muslim terror attacks as well. But I think that you are stretching it when you're saying because you have a skin color with someone who did a bad thing, that means you are partially responsible. And I just think if that article was to come out on the right to say that all Muslims were responsible for terror attacks, or every Muslim in Turkey is responsible for ISIS, or it would be like front page news. It would be,
of course,
Smackdown. It's just not the right way to go. And I think even the people who are critical of Islam and critical of Islamic immigration, they even say we recognise that the majority of Muslims are good, law-abiding people. That's the first thing they say. The first thing they say is not all Muslims are responsible for, the terror attacks of the Islamic State or throughout Europe or throughout the Western world. And so I think there's a total double standard in the analysis. And I think, I think we should have a bit of an equal consideration of both sides and apply standards equally.
Oh yeah, you're 100% right. And it is the same people, the same people who suggest, well, we shouldn't, use the broad brush. Okay, that's their favourite term. Well, we can't slam all Muslims with a broad brush. A white guy goes into a mosque and kills a whole bunch of people, and then all of a sudden, all white people have to apologise and have to, and then not only that, the scary thing is, right, and is that this attack, and you can already see it, is being used as a means by which people can score political points and grow in political axis. This is already happening. So you can already see that, well, there's now a push to, for instance, censor particular viewpoints, censor particularly not just like the extreme aspects on the right, but for instance, there's a massive push to say, well, no one from one nation should be able to get a platform on any major television network, for example. And then the thing is, it just keeps creeping more towards the centre. But in terms of the point about the double standard, of course, it is very difficult to establish a victim oppressor narrative when you don't apply the double standard. Because in the situations where the double standard gets crossed, the whole thing collapses in on itself. And this is what you see. Now, of course, when you say, well, people don't choose to be white, but to a degree, people can choose to be a Muslim, that is true. That is true. And I think we should also recognise the fact that there is the theological aspect of Islam, and there is also the political aspect. This is the one that, the law,
The Wahhabism.
The Wahhabism and
the jihad.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of turning a state into a theocracy, right? And that's the aspect that's scary. No one's saying, look, there are the pure theological, the pure kind of the peaceful aspects of Islam need to be totally uprooted. But we're having a look and we're saying, well, all white people need to apologise and come to grips with themselves. It doesn't make sense. It's dumb. It's actually quite dangerous. And it's just, again, this self-flagellation of white people whenever they see like a minority that's been oppressed or in danger. It's like that scene out of the Da Vinci Code where the priest is just whipping himself for the sins, But it's not our sin. It's not personal. It's not like I was the person responsible, but I'm going to be the one to apologise. It doesn't make sense. It's not, at that point, there's no logical restriction, so it just never ends. We're just going to continue to apologise for stuff that other white people did. It's not helpful, it's not productive.
Anything to say, Endos?
A couple of good nominations, I think.
Okay, who do we want? We got Rachel Withers, who wrote the last one. We got Abandon the Ramsey Centre. We got Bill Maher and Rachel Maddow.
I would say Robert Mueller as well.
You would take Bobby Mueller?
Yeah, Bob Mueller.
Why?
He could have wrapped this up well before he chose to drag this on. And then to dump it at 5 p.m. on a Friday is a low act. So you get a Batman nomination for that.
Okay.
In my estimation.
I reckon we nominate Bill Maher for his total intellectual dishonesty. His refusal to look at the fact. His quote, I didn't need the Mueller report to know he's a traitor, I have a TV. Well, that's the problem, Bill, is that there's that much damn fake news.
Yeah.
And then that much other people who watch fake news, you think that because they watch the TV with all the fake news on it, they know everything.
It's a vicious circle.
It's a vicious cycle of
fake news.
Uninformed bubbles.
They're the bubble people down there in Los Angeles. It's remarkable.
I think it's the global capital of soy, is what I've heard.
I wouldn't be surprised.
The soy? Okay. Nice work, Bill Maher. Well, I think that one's pretty much going to wrap us up, unless we have any more. Oh, we've got to jump into conclusions.
To
Alex has got to
Dr.
explain.
Zan's conclusion.
Okay.
Why do girls have no real friends who are girls?
Especially best friends.
And I want to hear this criteria for what the real friends are.
How many of us, in the words of Kanye West?
Okay. Well, look, this is largely observational and anecdotal. But in the world of social sciences, a lot of that is hard evidence. So what I'm going to say is this. From what I have noticed, from the rapid speed from which girls will jump from best friend to best friend, from best friend to not being friends, from an extremely lax criteria for best friend. You'll often hear a girl say, oh yeah, she was my best friend in year 8 English or something like that. We were so close, right? And it's now second year at university. And they're all friends, but you've never heard of them before in talking to this girl. They've never been in photos, but they are best friends. I'd say when you classify everything as best friends, you don't have best friends, okay? Everything cannot be, you can't have everything and nothing all at once, right? My tendency is to say that's not true. And also, the fact is that when, in many examples from what you see, and this is the kind of, the whipped narrative from a bloke, the reason why a female, in my estimation, will dominate a male's time to the extent where guys become whipped is because the criteria for having a previous best friend was so slim and so non-restrictive that then it's a very easy transition to go to the bloke. That's very, very easy for them. Whereas guys, the perpetual struggle is, can I find time to go see the boys? The girls is, can I make more time to see the guy, right? Because prior, they didn't have actual best friends. That would be my pitch.
Well, I was out last night talking to the boyfriend of one of my good friends, and he goes, I just don't know who we like and who we don't like. It changes from week to week. I thought we hated her. Now she's back in the good books.
Yeah.
So I think there is a strong case.
I think there's I'm sympathetic to Alex's point of view. I think the just in relation to why some guys get whipped, and to Andy's mate who sounds very whipped that he can't make up who he likes without the permission of his girlfriend.
No. He was saying that the girl is talking to the boyfriend, and the boyfriend is saying, "Oh, I thought we didn't like that chick last time."
Because
it's the girl who keeps chopping and changing.
But that's what I'm saying, is that he's saying I didn't know who we liked or not, and the we is saying that his girlfriend is deciding who he does and doesn't like.
Well,
No,
obviously,
but when he's talking about we, he's assigning a we to her.
it's
Okay,
yeah.
well, whatever the case
Of course,
may
the
be.
boyfriend's going to take that side and be
Yeah.
at the side of his.
Yeah, so that's
his
what I'm saying, is
girlfriend.
he's whipped, right?
Yeah.
And in a lot of whippage cases, look, you can always stand back and say, well, it's the girlfriend who whipped the bloke, so it's the girl's fault. But really, it's not a helpful conclusion to come to. What you should understand is that if you're a bloke who's whipped, it is because you have failed to set any strong boundaries, and it's your own damn fault. And you should say to the girl, look, darling, I'd love to go out on a date with you next week, but tonight I'm going to see the boys. Good evening, I'll see you later. You can also say to the girl, I know you don't like this person, but I have never had a reason to dislike them, so I'm going to go and have a lovely conversation with them, and if you're not okay with that, then we're going to have a problem. That's what you say to the girlfriend.
I think you're mischaracterising what he actually.
Well,
what he's
I'm not
actually
even saying that in relation to
Okay.
Andy. I'm saying that in terms of the guys who are whipped in general.
Yeah, sure.
I'm saying it represents essentially there's a beta-ness associated
Sure.
with not being
I
able to set
agree, but
boundaries.
that doesn't actually disprove my point, though.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not arguing against you. I just said in relation to this one.
It's just general doing
Also,
advice.
also, I think that is a dangerous way to approach your relationship with your significant other. Mostly because I see, it's similar to a sporting team. I would say a relationship with a female, in that you're both so close to each other.
This is your problem, Andy. Is that
Are you not going to let me speak?
Your
Are you
team
not
gets
gonna let me
blown
speak?
out by 40, and then you come to us with sports team analogies. Why would I take this relationship advice?
Dougal's getting sick. Come on, Anders. I'm listening.
Where
Just
was
gotta
I? I was
hustle
saying,
through it.
okay, so you're sort of banded together by, it's almost like a common cause and a goal that you two would have to eventually sort of, like, if you're in a relationship, you're hoping that eventually you, of course, like, spend the rest of your life with this person, is what I'd assume in most cases, right? The goal of a sporting team is to, like, win, get a championship or whatever. And if I dislike someone on the other team, the rest of the boys on my sporting team are also going to dislike them. That happened a lot throughout the season, where I talked a lot of smack to other people, and my boys came and we, as a collective group, realised that it was better off to achieve our goal if we all were set on this one thing. So if you are part of this relationship, you have this goal of, like, a long-term relationship with your partner, then choosing to, like, not trust them and their decisions on people is something that is very dangerous, I would say.
You don't have any. That's just ridiculous.
If you obviously you should
ridiculous.
trust the decision making of your significant other. If they hate someone or dislike someone, then you should, like, probably.
But sure, you're saying you should trust their decision making at the expense of your own.
Well, I mean, it's mostly in situations in
And that's
which
what
you
the
don't.
definition of
It's
whipped
mostly
is.
in situations where you don't have a say in it, or you don't see the things that are going on. Like if my girlfriend, if I had one, was like exposed to, like, her friendship group or whatever, and one of them falls out with the group, then I don't know anything about it. The only thing I hear is from that source of my girlfriend, I would say, and then her decision making would be what I would make my decision of.
regardless, if we can just bring it back to the topic, to the conclusion, I think it's fairly self-evident that my conclusion holds. I would say that there
I
are...
don't think so, because initially you said girls don't have real friends.
Yeah.
Then at the end you just said girls don't have best friends. And real friends is different to best friends.
I think they can be extrapolated, but
Andy, thesaurus.com today.
what do you
He's
mean?
being mean.
Why are you being such
He's
a...
being mean.
Dougal's just mad because he's getting...
But I would just say guys must just make better best friends.
I think it's I find it funny, the girls who like share things off like Kanye's diary on Facebook about like all their friends being snakes are usually the ones in themselves that are the snakes. Is a funny...
You know, there's a saying that goes around that you are the average of your 3 or 4 best friends, right? I think that's fairly true. But I just think you see the way in which girls can hop from best friend to best friend to best friend to best friend. Guys have pretty much the same best friend for life, or best friends. But if they have a new best friend, he stays a best friend. He doesn't fall in, fall out.
Yeah, I agree. Like, anecdotally, personally, my best friends have been... I've had a couple from kindy, year 1, and then one guy who's been a real late addition to the best friend group. The latest is like year 8. And we don't switch up on each other, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, good.
So I think that stands.
Okay.
I think it stands. Are you happy for it to stand?
I don't mind.
Bit
It was a bit
non-committal.
snippy today.
How's that fence you're sitting on?
I don't mind. Don't mind it, do I?
I think that draws us to a conclusion here.
Yeah.
Maybe for the first time ever on time. Do we have any
Closing remarks?
closing comments, anything to drag it on for a little bit?
Beta mail to Ealing Police, who on their Instagram posted a photo of one of their officers carrying a bunch of scissors, who said, following anti-knife crime talks at Stockley Academy School today, Year 7 students helped make their schools a much safer place by handing Safer Schools officer PC McGigan their dangerous scissors. Excellent day, fantastic result. Hashtag Safer Schools. They had to hand in their scissors to the police because of knife crime in...
Well, this is the problem with the UK, right? Is when you look at guns, for example.
Are we really going to go into guns now when we've just had our first time we can finish up on time?
I was just going to make a quick point.
Okay.
Jeez. That what happens is when you ban the guns, even though gun crime goes down, violent crime goes up. So, and this is exactly what's happened in England. Knife crime has skyrocketed. So yeah, that's what I'll just say.
I think if we're banning dangerous stationery, there's a guy in my class in year 2 who ate glue. I think that we're going to have to take the glue sticks as well.
School bags as well, if you fill them up.
I mean,
with books, are pretty lethal.
when they explode with chalky milk, gee whiz, that's a dangerous situation to be in.
And I mean, you talk about school bags, like the mental health and the mental safety when if your bag gets nuggeted, a busy day.
What's nuggeted?
You never had your bag nuggeted.
What's a nuggeting?
Nuggets when you turn the bag, you take all the books out, turn the bag inside out, and then you zip it up the other way, reverse it. So it's just the inside of the bag. And then you can do it up with like a cable tie or something like that. You can mix it. It's fun.
The thing we do with school bags, we used to just flip them over people's heads, especially like you have them on, you flip them over.
I had at school. I fell over once. I had a school coming out of chapel. I had a school bag that was so heavy, and for whatever reason, I think it might have been Amy or someone just like pushed me off to the side a little bit, and I just had all my books in there. Like I just got to school and and it was just I just tipped over.
Yeah, I think I was in
year... It's like, tractor tipping?
I was in year 7 or 8, just walking down to PE, and one of my buddies, like, pushed me a little bit forward with my school bag and then ripped it back as hard as he could. And the whiplash was the most painful thing I've ever experienced.
Imagine that big long neck of Anders. It's just whipping.
It's got a few personal experiences regarding whiplash, particularly being on the other end. There was a time at our farm... when we had a really close family friend who just bought a brand new spanking new
it's
buggy.
already being exaggerated.
Brand new buggy would have cost, I reckon, probably 10 grand at least.
Oh, and the rest, mate.
And
the
a
rest.
brand new buggy. I was just driving one of the old driving like a Gator, like a little 4-wheeler type of scenario. And anyway, Mum and our family friend and a few of the other kids hanging out on the just having a picnic
in a paddock
on the lake. So you know what a paddock is? There's like hundreds and hundreds of meters of room, and the whole thing's a parking lot, right? You can park anywhere, you can drive anywhere. There's essentially no rules except don't hit the other people in the paddock, right? So we were coming in from driving around, like having a good time, driving around the farm. I pull up next to Mum, who's just having a lovely picnic.
I think she just came back from a hip replacement.
From a hip replacement, probably. I was parked in the car. I reckon I was parked there for about 5 minutes. And
it gets changed, and all the aspects of the story which are incriminating on me just get out of proportion.
I reckon I was parked there for at least 5 minutes.
Why would you still be in the Gator?
Because I was just having a nice chat with Mum.
It's nice to sit there.
It's nice to sit there in the sun on the Gator.
Sometimes you don't get the flies.
And Andy, coming about 100 miles an hour in our family friend's brand spanking new buggy, comes up and rams me perfectly in the behind of the Gator, and I almost broke my neck. I whipped it back, almost knocked my head open, like on the back of the
just provide
on the back of the thing.
Provide the one point.
Andy totaled our friend's buggy.
Written off. It was a write-off.
Let me provide you the one
brand
point.
Spanking new.
The one point
right in front of him,
which
the whole
showcases
paddock.
like your whole story is completely exaggerated by the one point that you've got the vehicles mixed up. You were in the brand. It wasn't even brand spanking new. It was just their bloody buggy that you were sitting in. I was about, I'd say, a second and a half behind you as we were tearing through, and you smacked the brakes. The Gator's brakes are notoriously whack. Smacked the brakes, but it wouldn't stop. I tried to swerve out, but gotcha.
Swerved right into me.
No.
Regardless.
Look, not everything's about you, Dougal. This is tangential. This is why we go over.
Yeah, you're getting up me for a quick spiel on
I
Violent
thought if
Crime.
we were all decided to go over, then might as well contribute.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
This might have to just be like an extras bit that we release separate to the actual thing, because this is
We
ridiculous.
welcome you to some bonus material. The few minutes extra
The
from
director's cut.
Andy and his guests.
And his what?
Guests.
I think we're done here.
I think we're done.
Great
cool.
job, team.
Cool, Bangs. Thanks for being with us, by the way.
See you next week.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Next week I'll be here with a shaved head. So
Little skinhead.
little skinhead looking like the white.
Also, next
supremacist
week,
Australian.
we should give a shout out to Charlie Joyner, who's fighting next week down in Chookley. So if you want to join, we're going to be there. Me and Duke's going to be on the beers. Andy's driving us up. It's going to be great.
Might have to take 2 cars for that actually, but we'll figure something out.
I doubt it.
I doubt it.
Okay. See you later.
See you later. Peace and love.